cannot even buy insurance with their own money. So what I would support, obviously, is that we no longer have undocumented people, that we move forward, that we have urgency to this issue, that we find a pathway for these folks to no longer be undocumented, or else find some type of a waiver that will allow them to have health insurance, because this is a very important issue that we all need to work on. As I said, every day it impacts the community, it impacts the health care of children, and as was mentioned earlier, farm workers who are exposed to.
Thank you very much.
If I could follow up briefly, I understand the unique circumstances with undocumented, but more broadly for people who are citizens and legal residents, there's still massive numbers of those who are uninsured. What about going forward? What if the Affordable Care Act goes away? What do we do?
That's a tough question, Tim. I mean, it's going to be up to me and 434 other people to decide what we're going to do in that case. But certainly I would try to find funding that would provide some type of a safety net for these people that are most vulnerable in our society. That's the only thing to do. That's the American thing to do. Certainly if this was happening in another country, we would be sending shiploads of supplies and missionaries and everything else to take care of these issues. So I think our charity has to start here at home, and we have to find ways of making it work. There has to be the political will.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Moraga.
Supervisor Parks, all candidates running for office in multicultural districts, they all promise, oh yes, we're going to have a very diverse staff when we get elected to Congress or whatever position they get elected to. I like to judge a candidate based on their current positions in government. So can you tell me in Thousand Oaks, which is in your district about 20%, approaching 20% Latino population, how many people do you have on your staff in frontline positions who are Latinos?
I don't look at people, first of all, in terms of what color they are, what ethnicity they are. I look for quality. I have one Hispanic, one Latino, if you will, and I have 2 Asian and one Caucasian. So I guess the majority would be what would be referred to as minority or emerging population. But like I said, I don't see people in terms of color, and I realize that in a country we have both majority and minorities. We have to respect all, and I don't see people in terms of what ethnicity they are. I don't see people in terms of what party they are, Republican or Democrat. I think that we all need to work together, and some people need a little bit more help than others.
But given that the new congressional district will have such a large Latino population, don't you think you will go ahead and have to increase your staffing level as far as to represent that population?
From what I heard, staffing for congresspeople are close to 30 people. I have 5, so absolutely, I would definitely want to have someone on my staff, if not several on my staff, that will do a good job representing me and getting input. I work very hard to get input from people. I've started a lot of municipal advisory councils, and that's ways to get information. Having senior summits is ways to get information. And unlike our president, congressperson, I feel it's very important to have accessibility, to have town halls, to have forums. My phone number I give out, 805-497-0450. You can also email me at linda@sendlinda.com. I just feel it's very important to hear from the people. I don't have all the answers, but I know I will be a better decision maker if I can hear from people. And so I really look forward to hearing from everyone and hearing your opinion.
Thank you very much. Next, Manuel.
Thank you. This question is for you, Mr. Cruz. The Latino community is tired of being taken for granted. Many times, candidates and politicos translate even their names from John to Juan, from Peter to Pedro, during their campaigns to get to the Latino community. But it's only during the campaigns that these politicos go and target the Latino community. once they're elected, they're gone. What do you think of that? And is your political platform is different, or are you planning to do the same?
Well, first of all, I'm not a career politician, so I'm an average guy who's a father of four. My parents immigrated to this country from South America. I speak fluent Spanish. I'm reminded every single day when I speak with my mother, who only speaks Spanish to me, the struggles and what we went through to come here, to live the American dream. And we were on the verge many times. My mother was basically left with 3 young kids who borderline homeless in a foreign country, not speaking the language, not knowing the customs, not having a family to support, a family to fall back on. And so I won't have to be reminded about the things that we went through and what the Latino community goes through. I can identify because I've gone through it.
Thank you very much. Frank, you open up the second round? Of Ms. Parks again? Yeah, she's first this time.
Regarding immigration comprehensive reform, it's a mess up there with Congress. How are you going to go ahead and resolve that issue? Are you going to be able to push for full comprehensive reform, or is it going to be a step-by-step process?
Well, first of all, I don't think we can deport or should deport every illegal immigrant, 11, 12, 13 million people. I don't think we should grant them all citizenship either. And I think what we do need is an effective guest worker program. We've had them in the past, but one that doesn't abuse people. I feel strongly that, just Saturday was Cesar Chavez Day, and how much has happened since the days when I first saw him speak at my college, and then followed him off to UCLA where he was going to speak and actually got pulled over by them. They were worried, why is this woman following? But grew up without eating grapes and all that. But realizing though what we have done since the 1950s out in the fields, we have the same kind of situation we had back then, and it is shocking to me. We definitely need to have a good comprehensive immigration reform, and we're not going to have it unless Democrats and Republicans will work together. We can just, they are actually refusing to work together, and that's why I believe running as an independent, I have the ability to work with both sides of the aisle. I think we need more people who can shed their partisanship and work with both sides of the aisle.
Thank you very much. Manuel, one more time to Mr. Baines.
Mr. Herrera, we have contamination issues in this county of Ventura for many years. We know that contamination is one of the greatest reasons for asthma, for example. And the Latino community in this county is one of the greatest number of people affected by asthma, for example. We have a site here that has been identified as a highly contaminated holocaust. What, if elected, would you do to alleviate that problem?
First of all, I think the EPA plays a very important part in cleaning up these sites. And I think that one thing that the public needs to understand is the responsible parties for the pollution are required to clean these places up. This is very important because this should not be paid for by taxpayer dollars, but it should be paid for by the responsible parties that created the pollution. There is a super fund is created by placing a tax on these people that participate in these chemical industries so that the super fund can provide for that cleanup. The thing is that with the environmental laws as they are, it does take a long time to go through and do the studies and clear all the particulars on how you are going to clean up or encapsulate the particular area that is environmentally dangerous to the community. So it is a very slow process, but it is a process that is continuing, and the most important part is that the people that did contaminate the area are responsible for cleaning up the area, and that the burden should not be on the taxpayers. And as far as the EPA, it has done a great deal to clean the air that we breathe. We have 90% cleaner burning automobiles. It's cut pollution 50% in manufacturing. and on and on and on. So the EPA is an important, department, and we should support it, and we should also support the cleanup of these places like Calico and the Chevron Superfund site.
Thank you very much. Jim?
Yeah, I'd like to move to taxes and the economy for a second for Mr. Thane. You know, Warren Buffett has famously observed that he pays a lower tax rate than his secretary. Do you believe the capital gains tax should be raised so that taxes on investment income are the same level as the taxes paid on the sweat of the brow income that people in the Latino community do?
I'd be thrilled to answer that question. I just got a quick question for you, though. Is Ms. Brownlee is she gonna get a chance here?
I think we're gonna get back on track.
Just wondering.
I can assure you, we're keeping track of every all the questions that are asked, so at the end of the day, if it works
She
right.
just seemed a little lonely back down there, and I just want to make sure she.
You know, it's very, very good that you're sticking up for a fellow candidate. Very good.
Capital gains rate versus the taxes on ordinary earnings.
Well, you know, there's a bunch of different directions we can go here, and one thing that I think that those who are making $250,000 or more in this situation, we need to their taxes probably are going to need to be raised, and those who are making below that, they maintain the same. And it is very troubling when you see folks like Mitt Romney, who is paying 13.9%, and you see these crazy rates. I will tell you this: there is a gigantic chunk of those who are making a tremendous amount of money, and I would say, let me just put a number on it, 10 million and above, who seem to me are getting away with all kinds of loopholes for them, and they're getting away with not paying their fair share. So those loopholes need to be closed. We need to have our tax system needs to be reformed, and that's an area where I would look to do that.
Mr. Morales, Ms. Brown?
Assembly Member Brown. Foreclosure crisis. We're starting to hear reports. The second wave is coming. The Obama administration supported the Attorney General's settlement, going ahead and with the banks, and now they're starting to go ahead and help give back money to some people who have lost their homes. Did that go far enough? If it did not go far enough, what more needs to be done to go ahead and resolve that issue?
Well, this is an issue I think that has hit Ventura County very, very hard. And I think, you know, with the bank situation having sort of been bailed out, and banks seem to be healthier now. Banks seem to be bringing in appropriate profits. And from my perspective, I don't think banks are giving back enough. It is critically important that banks are providing the ability for people in Ventura County whose houses are underwater or foreclosed, that they can refinance and keep themselves in the home and refinance in a way that is affordable to them. And I co-authored a bill. Mr. Assemblymember Ted Luke carried a bill in the California legislature early on to try to ask banks to be more responsible about underwriting and creating financing that's going to work for people to stay in their homes. There's no reason why people should, if their homes are underwater, that they should be able to stay in them, and there's no reason for the banks to take them over and try to make a profit on that. So I would be a strong advocate for making sure that banks are doing everything that they can vis-a-vis credit, vis-a-vis loaning, vis-a-vis refinancing their homes.
Thank you very much. Manuel, to Ms. Parks.
Ms. Parks, on the same topic, in Ventura County and nationwide, the Latino community was the sector of the community that suffered the most of the real estate crash. There were a lot of real estate agents, even Hispanic real estate agents, that took advantage of Hispanics and Latinos. And a lot of them are in jail now, and more will be going in that direction. But what the fraud in the country, in these communities, is only a percentage of the big chunk of money that was lost. Investors and other companies and people lost their homes, their money. But we don't see the big top executives or these financial institutions, the ones that make the millions of dollars in jail. If elected, what specifically are you planning to do to correct that situation?
And it is still going on. We're seeing a lot of people being taken advantage of. And I think, first of all, beefing up our enforcement ability. And then in Ventura County, our district attorney has been working very closely with the real estate industry to help educate people so that they don't end up in situations where they've signed off on loans that they certainly can't afford. But also, I think we need to have a Congress that is accountable. We should not have had to pass a law that said that Congress members can't do inside trading. And there are just laws that are out there on the books, and I think that we need to enforce them. And sometimes because of special interests, we end up in situations where the laws are not getting enforced. And I think it is really important to have the laws in place. And I think by not taking special interest money, I don't take money from corporations or PACs, unions, or just from individuals. I think that's one way that you can reduce the influence of special interests. Legislation is being written based on who's contributing to what Congress member, and that's wrong. So I think first of all is making sure that we have people who are independent of special interests. Otherwise, we're not going to get those laws in place.
Thank you very, very much. Okay, Tim, back to,
Yeah, I think we're going to do a bit of a catch-up here, and we'll go to Assemblywoman Brownlee. You know, I know that you've worked for several years trying to get school financing changes in California, in part to try to ensure that maximum resources go to the schools with some of the greatest challenges in dealing with low-income families, high percentages of English learners. At the federal level, when the Elementary and Secondary Education Act is reauthorized, what do you think can be improved that might help that advance that objective at the federal level?
Well, let me say first and foremost that I think we need to make education a national priority in this country, and I don't believe Congress or the President is doing that at the moment. ESEA is going to be reauthorized, I would imagine, after Obama is elected, probably not before. But certainly with that reauthorization, the direction of the Obama administration at the moment is to provide all of these sort of categorical Title I funding coming in out of Washington, and they're working towards creating sort of competitive grants. From my perspective, that's really not okay. They're trying to leverage local school districts to do particular prescriptive things. I think we need to have local control. We need to ensure that particularly Title I monies, special education monies are getting to the school districts and to the students in the classroom. That is critically important. I think No Child Left Behind, which is the other name for ESEA, has been an ineffective policy. It has not been funded. It is directed at teaching directly to a test. Children aren't having the depth and the breadth of curriculum that they deserve, and so that needs to be changed. Certainly, we need to have accountability measures.
thank you. I'm sorry, thank you very much. Okay, we're pretty much even, Mr. Cruz Days. I just want to this is the fairness manner over there, along with Ms. Parks. Everybody's about fairness, so everybody's about even in questions and answers. I wanted to make sure everybody that's using the mics speak up as loud as you can into the mics to allow the translators to capture what you're saying and be able to convey that. We're going to go to questions from the audience, and I'd like Dave Morse to stand up. Dave Morris asked of all of the candidates, how do you propose to bridge the substantial socioeconomic gaps between West and East Ventura County? And we will start again with the Okay, Ms. Brown.
Thank you very much, and I really appreciate that particular question because I think it really underscores what's happening here in Ventura County. It's also underscoring what's happening in California and across the country, where there are pockets of extraordinary educational systems and pockets where typically there's poverty and an abundance of English language learners, where the quality of education is not good. And that, from my perspective, that's not okay. And I see that many people refer to an achievement gap amongst our students. I really refer to it as an opportunity gap because of the inequity of support we're giving to some schools over the other. And Mr. Hurt was talking about what I've tried to do up in Sacramento, and that's what this is all about, is to say that there's a huge inequity of funding, and that's, the results we're trying to achieve is for all kids to be successful in school, then we need to adequately fund money to all of our children. And so that might be a disproportionate amount of funding that has to go to students who have English language barriers and have to learn English, as well as students of poverty.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to stay in that time frame. Again, let me ask the question, or let me pose the question again to you, Mr. Herrera. And let's try and be as specific to the question, your answer, because I think everybody, really, I hope you're going to be making your assessments as to how responsive they are to the question. How do you propose to bridge the substantial socioeconomic gaps between East and West Ventura County? 1 minute.
That would be very difficult to do in 10 years.
I really did pretty tough. This is a great opportunity to show that you can do it.
Well, the issue in bringing the communities together is you have to realize that there's two diverse communities. We've always talked about the West County and the East County. Economic development is going to be the key to making the difference. If you have Oxnard with a mean income of about $23,000 and you have Thousand Oaks with a mean income of about $49,000, there's a great disparity there in property taxes that are paid to go into the schools and everywhere else. What we have to do is come together and understand that the foreclosures have taken place across the county regardless of economic standing. So the only way to get back on our feet is to have a county-wide movement to create jobs and get everybody working together and get everybody on the same economic level that we are in now. And we're going to have to work with agriculture, we're going to have to work with the port, and we're going to have to work with all companies like Amgen to bring these economic scales back so that we can have East and West finally come together and have a community where people are all earning a decent level of living and have health care.
Did a heck of a job in 1 minute and 24 seconds. Okay, Ms. Parks, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, just do what he just said. I do think of some other things in addition to that. First of all, we do have a lot of great economic generators, great businesses in our county, and some of them were mentioned. But I also know that we have corporations out there that aren't even hiring, not only from Ventura County, they're not even hiring people from the United States. I know of companies that Value Click talks about having a couple hundred openings that they cannot fill. I heard Semtech has a couple hundred openings they cannot fill. These are jobs that we need skilled workers for. We need to have engineers and scientists and technologists and mathematicians, and we're not getting them out of our schools. And the state of California doesn't prioritize education, higher education particularly. They're talking about freezing the Cal State enrollment. They're cutting back wonderful community college programs where you have job training. Oxnard College is particularly being hurt. We need to support our community colleges, our state colleges, our UCs. It's becoming inaccessible to people because of the high tuition. We need to be able to make sure that we have priorities in place, and that's one example. We do have areas that need more work than others. I was delighted, for example, to receive SOMAS into my district, and then I start looking at how we need to be able to go through their school there. A lot of parents aren't sending their children there. And there's things that we can do in the elementary.
Thank you very much, Ms. Parks. Thank you very much. Mr. Cruz, thanks.
I'm also seeing a tremendous gap when you look at companies like Amgen and Baxter, and you look and see who they're hiring, they're not hiring within. They're not hiring from Ventura County. They're bringing in folks from other countries. Our kids are not they're not ready to be trained for these types of jobs. And there's all these high-tech jobs that are available out there, and they're not ready to take those. They're not properly trained for those jobs. Also, there's a big gap when you look at the school system. As I go around and I volunteer in my kids' classroom, I see what's going on there firsthand. And then when I go around to other areas, you see what's going on there. And you see that there's a tremendous gap there that needs to be closed. But one way you also do that is create jobs. I mean, at the end of the day, jobs take care of a lot of problems. I mean, so the more that we can be out there and creating jobs, the better that our district's going to be.
Thank you very, very much. I'm going to ask one more question from the audience, and let me let you understand how we're going to do this so that it's as fair as we can do, or fair as we can be. We have about 40 questions. Many of them are, about half are to all candidates, and the vast majority of the questions for individual candidates are to Ms. Parks. So what we're going to do is we're going to do at least, they're all here so that way nobody can get upset that I've misrepresented anything. What we're going to do is we're going to go to a second question. We're taking them as questions come in order that they were received. And so this next round will be, again, to all candidates. The next rounds, we'll start picking individual ones. Dennis O'Leary. Mr. O'Leary asks, how can the federal government push or require agricultural owners to be more responsible towards field laborers even if they may be undocumented? I'm going to ask that we start on the other side with David Cruz-Spain. 1 minute.
What you do is you get members of Congress who can support organizations like UFW and organizations like that that are doing real good work. That are trying to raise and trying to make things better out in the fields. So that's how I would do it.
I'm going to take the private gentleman the following up. That hasn't happened since the union was in existence. So give us another answer.
Do me a favor to repeat the question.
How can the federal government push or require agricultural owners to be more responsible towards field laborers even if they may be undocumented?
Well, one way to do that is to get a strong immigration pathway to citizenship. That has to happen. I mean, we have all these folks that are living in the shadows who are contributing, who are doing great things in their society, who are obeying the rules, and we have to create a pathway to citizenship. One way I have a plan to do that. One way we do that, I believe, is you create I believe you have to have a little skin in the game, a certain, we call it a surcharge of whatever the amount that is, maybe $2,500, that gets the person in the system. They pay that, it gets them in the system, it allows them to get their green card, and puts them on this pathway to citizenship.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I gave you a break. Ms. Parks, you answer that question, please. Would you like me to repeat it?
What can Congress do? What can the federal government do?
What can the federal government specifically do to require agricultural owners to be more responsible towards their workers, their laborers, even if they may be undocumented?
What I think is our country is we're a nation of laws, and there are laws in place. And people who are undocumented are here because the farmers need them, and they are picking the crops in the fields. And the fact that there are abuses, for example, I'm hearing about black market pesticides that are being used. I was so glad to see enough pressure put on the state of California to ban methyl iodide, which can actually go to cause cancer and burn your lungs. Those kind of things to protect the worker. But the agricultural owner, the farmer, they sometimes are getting fake green cards and social security cards, and so they aren't necessarily to blame for this either, because the problem is that these workers are needed, and we are a nation of laws, and for some reason, and I know what that reason is, they can't work together in Congress. It's kind of a wink and a nod, and it's allowing it to take place. And the only way we're going to get Congress to make any laws is for the Republicans and the Democrats to work together. And right now, they cannot do that.
Thank you very, very much. Mr. Herrera, would you like me to repeat the question? Dennis O'Leary. How can the federal government push or require agricultural owners to be more responsible towards field laborers, even if they may be undocumented?
Well, one way to start is by enforcing the laws that are on the National Labor Relations Board books, by free choice acts, allowing people to organize, allowing them to vote. Recently, I was with Arturo Rodriguez, the president of the UFW, and I pledged to him that I would be helping him in organizing, raising funds, so that we can have farm workers that do make a decent living. This is very important. This is a very important issue. If Cesar Chavez were here today, he'd probably say boycott, 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 hit them in the pocket, hit them where they live. And this is what we have to do. This is what we have to do to support people, to have humane treatment for the people in our community that we drive by every day and see working in the fields, and this is what it's going to take. This is what we're going to have to do. And so I would say, Mr. Torres, si se puede.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Now, we're going to go back to order. We're going to start with Tim. I'm going to give you 2 extra questions now. Please forgive me, Ms. Brown.
Thank you. Well, I was sort of chided about not fully answering the last question that I had, but I wanted to say in terms of East and West, and closing that is, if we close that educational gap there, then that will help to secure economic and social separation between those regions. So I wanted to say that. To the question that's before us, again, it's about, yes, it's about the laws on the books and enforcement and getting the Agricultural Labor Relations Board, enforcing the rules that are there. But it's also about doing more. And I have been a co-author of a bill in California that gave farm workers more rights, the ability to unionize. And if they're harassed, they have further rights and further opportunities for organizing. There's 150 strawberry farms in the Oxnard area, and there's one that's unionized. And I think that we can do better than that. So farm workers need to be protected, not only here in California, but they need to be protected across this country. And we should be looking at national policies to protect and ensure that farm workers are paid well, that they have the right conditions to work under. And I'm proud to say that I just found out earlier today that the United Farm Workers are endorsing me in this race because they believe in the work that I have done around farm worker issues. And I too have worked with Arturo Rodriguez in Sacramento and in the field, and I'm very, very happy to have that endorsement and will continue my advocacy in this area.
Thank you very much, and again, I'm sorry, Ms. Brown. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to go back to the order with Tim going to Ms. Brown.
Okay, well, I want to address this question, if we can try to deal with it as succinctly as you can, and we'll just go down the line. Assemblywoman Brown, we'll start with you on the issue of civil rights and race relations. I want to know your opinion on what lessons should Americans be learning today about the state of civil rights and race relations from the fatal shooting of Trayvon Martin in Florida. What lessons does that teach us?
I think it teaches us a lot. I think it underscores what is happening in communities across the country. And it certainly tells me that we have to be more vigilant than ever to ensure that that racial profiling is unacceptable. And that's going to take a lot of training of law enforcement, and certainly from a national level again. I mean, do we have to look at, is it okay for states to have the kind of laws that they had, which seems to have permitted what had happened? And so I think we've got to really look at that in a very, very serious way. But we know that discrimination is continuing to happen, and there's racial bias that's continuing to happen, and we have to be vigilant. I think it starts in education in our schools and educating the youngest generations. But the adults in the world have to be trained, and particularly the adults that are in public safety or in our schools and that kind of thing. And we have to continue to look at regulations and advocate for a society that I think everybody knows how I would have finished.
Mr. Herrera, what should we learn from the shooting of Trayvon Martin? What should we take from that as we move forward as a society?
I think we should look at ourselves and see that hate crimes still exist. Unfortunately, I have to report that 61% of hate crimes that are going on right now in the United States are against Latinos. And so this is a very serious issue, and I think it should be elevated to a federal crime now. If you have a hate crime against anyone in our society, whether it's a woman, a gay, lesbian person, whatever it may be, discrimination is alive and well in the South. People are being excluded from voting still. In the southern states, this is prevalent, especially among the African American community. And I think we really need to look at this as a country. And as your congressman, I would certainly lead a commission to investigate these types of things and raise it to the type of crime that it really is. It's a hate crime, and that says it all, and we need to stop that.
Supervisor Parks?
All I can say is, please, dear God, let us learn something from that. Let us have learned something from that. We stand and defend kind of law that allows for someone to basically murder someone else because they're fearing for their life. Outside, with someone running away from them, those kind of things, it certainly is a racial profiling. But what can you do to fix that? I spoke with leaders of the NAACP, and to hear what they are teaching their children, to see that when they are up against an officer, that if the officer is going to push against them, you don't push back, and trying to teach them that. But I thought, what a shame that you have to teach your child that to begin with. And how we can come together, as we've done it so well with other things, for example, people with mental illness, letting us learn more about them. I think about the Israeli youth that are, putting on Facebook, "We heart you, we're not going to bomb you," to the youth in Iran. Just to me, we need to come together as a society and break down these barriers, because we shouldn't have to teach our children that because of your race that you're going to be treated differently by authority or by others who aren't your same race. So I just think that we need to come together. I would put together forums and try to bring people together.
And Mr. Thain, your thoughts?
At the end of the day, we have to educate our youth. That's what it comes down to. Each one of us has a responsibility as parents and grandparents to remind young children what our country's gone through. How did we get to this place? And there was so much great work done by so many individuals. My political heroes are Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King, and John F. Kennedy and Cesar Chavez, and the kind of work that they did and for civil rights. Our kids forget, they don't know these stories. They're not aware of this. It's our responsibility to educate our youth and to parent our kids. And every generation has to be reminded of what took place and how to make it better.
Thank you very much, sir. Before we go to the next question, which will be from Mr. Moraga to Mr. Herrera, I want to again underscore to the candidate. This is, I believe, organizing committee, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first debate of candidates on Latino issues this year, or in a long time with any other candidate. So I'm going to appeal to you to try and be as specific as you can in your answers and relate it to the social, economic, demographics of the 26th Congressional District. It's very, very important. I understand these issues are, in some cases, kind of new to you, but I think it's very, very important to share with the audience the detail of information and knowledge and understanding that you have of this district, its composition, and the data that has been available to everyone through the census tract for the last almost 2 years. So I just, I want to caution you to please stay away from the generalities, and let's try and stay as focused as we can on specifics. Yes.
Commissioner Herrera, I'm a student of the graduate of the community college district here in Ventura County, and just looking over the past 10 years or so, it's just amazing how much is being given. We're talking about, major classes being cut. They're basically transfer institutions down, not doing a very good job of that. Specifically, these Hispanic serving institutions, primarily in West County, what are you going to go ahead and do to help them get back on track, to help Latino students who need to get the training to go ahead and get the good jobs that they need?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and restore funding for these Hispanic serving institutions to the pre-recession level. During the past couple of years, the funding for these institutions has dropped by about $13 million in California. And we need to make sure that the funding levels per student are up. We need to make sure that the people that are have the language barriers are getting the help that they need in the language barriers. And also, very important, that the money that's available there for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics is being used. Also, I want to engage our local businesses and our world-class customers that we have in this area to participate with the school, partner with the school, and we can designate what types of programs are needed, what types of training is needed for future employment here in our community. That's the way we're going to strengthen our community, by preparing our youth today for the jobs of tomorrow and providing schools and staffs with all the equipment necessary to provide a 21st century education.
Thank you very much. Mr. Munoz to Ms. Parks.
Thank you. This question will be actually for all the candidates. We have families that are broken every day in this country by immigration. We have families that one of the parents is an undocumented person, is deported. Sometimes both parents, but the kids are U.S. citizens. They cannot rightfully live legally in this country. And if we go back to the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, there's more rights coming into these individuals. I spoke to the director of Alejandro Mayorkas 2 weeks ago, who is the director of the USCIS, and he was explaining to me that we have a broken system in immigration. As members of Congress, if elected, what specifically are you planning to do to establish this breaking of our families, to fix our immigration system, to do something about it? Because we have a system that is broken. We have a system that has criminalized many of our residents not being able to become U.S. citizens just because they have a couple of DUIs or maybe other law-breaking situations that are not major, but still are unable to become U.S. citizens either. We have over 8 million individuals that should have been able to be U.S. citizens, but because of the system, they're unable to do so. Specifically, what are you planning to do to remedy that situation? Are you willing to submit a bill, to propose a bill to change that?
Having attended a social justice workshop, I think the first thing to do is really understanding the issue, and I really appreciate the fact that we're having this forum, because it is And it leaves a very inhumane situation, and families are being broken up. And what can we do in Congress about it? I think we have to break down the barriers in Congress also, and having hearings is one way that we can do that. But this is such an obvious issue to me, because it affects the entire nation. And I do believe that Republicans and Democrats both are concerned about this. There are specific things that I hear from both sides of the aisle that I think together we can move forward on. We have a lot of people driving around without driver's license. You know, what is that? And I don't know how many of you have been in accidents, you know, and we're finding that people who are undocumented don't have a driver's license, they're driving uninsured, and that is a liability for all of us. So to me, we need to actually have a pathway for residency, not citizenship, because we have that, and making that accessible. So I think that that's something we need to do. We shouldn't have a country full of undocumented people.
Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you what I would do. I would, as I mentioned earlier, I would roll up my sleeves. This would be one of my most important things to tackle is immigration reform. I'm such a believer in it and believe that we have to create the pathway to citizenship for all these folks. I'm always amazed when I talk with my mother, who was a Univision watcher and only watches Spanish TV, and she tells me about all the stuff that's going on. And then when you watch CNN, or if you watch even MSNBC or Fox or whatever you may watch, we don't hear about all these roundups and what's going on. I sat down with 2 immigration attorneys on Monday, and they briefed me for about 3 hours of all the things that are happening, and people are not aware of what's going on. And we have to basically educate the public. And forums like this and talking about issues like this are very critical. But educating the public and strong immigration reform as soon as possible.
Thank you. I would agree with you. Our immigration system is broken, and it's damaging our economic competitiveness, and it's tearing apart families, and it's doing that unnecessarily. I believe America is a nation of immigrants. We need comprehensive reform that with a common sense approach to that. I certainly look at it from a perspective of a humanistic approach, if you will. That's imperative that we create a pathway for citizenship, and we have a humanistic approach about keeping families together and not destroying businesses as well, who are dependent on so many of these workers. I certainly have, as a member of the California legislature, have worked on other issues that were within our control, but I think they should be looked at more on a national level too, and that is driver's license. That's certainly one of them. The DREAM Act, making sure that our children of immigrant families can continue their education after they graduate from high school, well-deserved, studied hard. Third, we need to strengthen our adult education programs. These are programs that provide citizenship classes and language to families who are here, who need those classes and need the help with the language. Thank you.
Mr. Andrea.
Certainly the United States is a land of laws and a land of justice, but certainly treating people this way is not justice. You know, earlier it was mentioned we could have a Bracero program here in Ventura County, and I'm totally against that because that's another form of exploitation of bringing people here to work and then locking them up. I remember as a child seeing the fences and the barbed wire at Camp Buena Vista here in Oxnard. And I don't think that's the way we want to treat people, and I don't think we want to continue to do that, putting one worker against another worker and creating more poverty. I say no to that. The Department of Justice has also delegated its authority to local law enforcement to enforce these laws, and I think that's wrong too, because they do not have the proper training to deal with this, and a lot of civil rights violations are being perpetrated against innocent people. People are afraid to report crimes because if they do report to local law enforcement, they will be arrested because they may be undocumented. So we need to protect people. We do need to have unification of families, whatever it takes. If it takes a waiver during the process of becoming a United States citizen, then that's what we need to do. Unification of families has to be the #1 step so that people may come out and may find a way to become either a permanent resident or a citizen of the United States of America.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Mr. Munoz, you have a quick follow-up.
Yes, my question was specifically, as members of Congress, would you sponsor a bill? Would you do something about it specifically? Because for over 20 years, we've been hearing exactly the same thing that you just said right now, and nothing has been done. The state is responsible for issuing driver's license. In the state of California, people that should have a driver's license doesn't have it. Therefore, they are unable to get insurance. Therefore, they are unable to get even the book to read the different laws and regulations pertaining to driving. The federal government is in charge of immigration. And still, we have none of the two. Would you sponsor a bill? That was the question. To do something about this specific.
Well, I would just say that I think what I am trying to say anyway is that I would be sponsoring a bill to have a comprehensive immigration reform. That's what we need. I absolutely believe that we need to have we need to take Congress back and have a Democratic Congress there, get Obama reelected, and over these next 4 years, this is our opportunity to fix immigration for once and for all. This, as far as I'm concerned, this has to be one of the top priorities of Congress. And I've already demonstrated, certainly in the California legislature, that I'm willing to support and author the opportunity for undocumented people to have their driver's license.
Thank you very much, Mr. Raleigh. 30 seconds on this one, you guys, because you guys did have, on the average, you had more than a minute. We're going to go right on down. You had more than a minute on that question. We all had a wrap. This is the third question on immigration, and your degree of specificity has not been anywhere close to what clearly Mr. Munoz and I have asked. So I'm going to give you only 30 seconds. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Rivera.
Repeat the question.
Go ahead, Mr. Munoz.
Sure.
Specifically, would you sponsor a bill to fix immigration issues that we have in this country?
Without a doubt, I would sponsor a bill very vigorously to champion the rights of the undocumented and make them legal citizens. The majority party has been blocking this for a long time. They're afraid of people becoming voters, and this is the last thing they want to see. They don't want to see 43% of America or beyond be able to vote and likely vote against them. So we definitely need to be in the majority. We definitely need to sponsor this bill and carry it through. I have the political will to do it. There's no question about that.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Parks?
Specifically, would I sponsor a bill? You know, I don't think I would support anyone's bill, whether it's my bill or anyone's bill. If it's a Republican bill, if it's a Democratic bill, if it's a bill that's going to be able to do comprehensive immigration reform, I would support it. Because we do need it, and I do believe we need to have people documented. And if they're documented, then I see that they can get driver's license, and it has to start at the federal level. And I think the kind of atmosphere of we need to take over the House, and it's got to be the Democrats to do it, or it's got to be the, to me, it is the partisanship specifically that is stopping this from happening. And so I think the right attitude is we need to have both parties at the table, and we all need to work towards this. And I think everybody does want to have this.
Mr. Payne?
Try to answer your question specifically. Absolutely, yes. I would fight for this, I would write it, I would co-sponsor whatever it needed to happen, I would make it happen. When I was back in Washington, D.C., I met with Charlie Gonzalez, who's the head of the Hispanic Latino Caucus, and Ben Ray Lujan, who's the second in charge there. And I made it very clear that this would be one of my top priorities. It's one of their top priorities. And when I'm elected to Congress, I would be part of that Hispanic Latino Caucus, and we would for sure fight for this and make sure this happens.
Okay, now I'm going to go to the next round for the audience, because now we're at the second interval. And these questions now will be of each of you individually. Okay. the first question, and we'll start in the middle with Mr. Herrera. Mr. Herrera, this question is from Rick Gomez. Mr. Gomez, will you stand? Mr. Gomez asks, do you support decriminalization of drug use in the United States and a reduction in military aid for the drug war in Mexico, Central America, and Colombia? Can I repeat it?
Yeah, slowly, slowly.
Do you support decriminalization of drug use in the United States and a reduction in military aid for the drug war in Mexico, Central America, and Colombia?
Wow. The decriminalization of drugs, never having taken a drug in my life, I don't see the necessity. I certainly would at this particular time, I would say that I would be against the decriminalization of drugs. I think there's a reason that we have these laws on the books, and obviously it has been proven that these types of things also lead to other things, and sometimes violence, and we don't want to do that. As far as the war on drugs in other countries, in Latin American countries, I certainly support that, because the tremendous toll that it's taking on Hispanics in these countries, the 150,000 people that are being killed in Mexico, is just unforgivable. And for us to stand by and not continue to support these efforts would just be criminal for us. So I would definitely support any effort to stop that drug trafficking in Mexico and to save the lives of all those innocent people. And especially, there's so many crimes being committed against women in these countries, and we need to stop that.
For Mr. David Cruz Stain from Clara Solorio. Clara, would you stand? Clara Solorio asks you, Mr. Thane, what can you do at the federal level to limit the local law enforcement from continuing to target Latinos and impounding vehicles for profit?
Again, as I mentioned earlier, first things first, we've got to educate the public. So many people don't realize this is going on. You see an example that she mentioned, someone will get pulled over, their car will be impounded, they may or may not have papers, all of a sudden the fees just rack up, it gets to be so much they can't get the car out, and you see this happening over and over again. But again, the lack of education, the lack of people realizing what's going on with some of these matters, some of these issues, is really lacking. And right now, just Univision, and there's a few channels like that, they're the only ones talking about this. No one else is talking about it.
Thank you. The next question is from Francine. Francine, would you stand? You didn't give me your last name. Francine asks the question of Ms. Parks. Since you were unable to make a decision on the PLA, how can we trust you with federal issues?
The PLA is a public labor, project labor agreement the County of Ventura had. And the Board of Supervisors, too, wanted to have all the construction workers go through union halls. Two wanted a less restrictive one. And I didn't get the contracts. And there were 4 contracts, each a couple of dozen pages, until 8:30 in the morning when I was to vote on it. And I am not voting on something I can't read first. And you look at the potential litigation that we were under if we, on some of those contracts, I don't want to vote on anything I don't read. And I would imagine that a lot of our Congress people didn't read the 2,000 plus pages of the Healthcare Reform Act. It's just a policy I have, particularly when faced with litigation.
I'll reserve the right on a follow-up on that one. So based on what you appear to be stating as a principle, that you do not vote for things that you have not fully read, you will take that principle and continue to apply it and practice it in Congress. So if you do not read a 2,000 plus legislation like the Affordable Care Act, you would not vote for that?
I was given something in the morning of the day of the vote. So to me, that was not appropriate. I need to be able to have the opportunity to have my staff look at it. I had a dedicated staff person look at this, and he didn't get the contracts.
But
And I
again,
don't, but yes, I want to make sure that I have complete confidence in what I'm voting for. And I am a very astute reader, and I would read everything that I can get my hands on.
so
And
again, let me one more
yes.
follow-up now.
Do you want a direct answer? Yes.
Okay, that's exactly what I wanted.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, very good. Okay.
It's a good policy, don't you think?
I have no opinion at this point. This one is from Mr. Bettis. Mr. Bettis, would you please stand? Mr. Bettis is standing in the background. His question is for Ms. Bromley. Ms. Bromley, excuse me. Why should we in Ventura County forfeit our voice, our vote, to someone who lives outside of our community?
Is that question directed to me?
Yes.
Well, I don't live outside of our community. I live in Ventura County. And for the last 6 years, I have represented a good portion of Ventura County. I have represented the constituents of Ventura County. I live in Ventura County. And so I feel like the question is sort of targeted, but I don't know how else to answer it except I live here, I have represented the constituents here, are my constituents, my community here for the last 6 years.
I think Ms. Brownlee, in fairness to you,
Yes.
and not wanting you to feel that that is at all the situation, I think the question goes around the report that the Ventura County Star reported that you had moved to the district and to Oak Park and apartment in Oak Park in order to be in the district. And I think that's where the concern was coming from. Would you like to respond to that?
Certainly. So, okay, I'm an assembly member. I represent part of Los Angeles County and Ventura County. About 8 weeks or so ago, I made a decision to run for Congress. Once I made that decision, I moved to Oak Park. That's what I did. And I reside in Oak Park, and I have resided there for the last, I'm not sure the exact days. I think it's roughly 8 weeks. And this is, I will reside in Ventura County. And was there another further question I was seeing? Yeah, I moved immediately after I decided to run for Congress.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to start with Frank, and we'll go to the other side this time. I just want to be as fair, and I can see in Tim's head that he wants to kind of mix it up a little bit, so we'll mix it up.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, well.
And incidentally, I just want to thank you, audience. We're going to go to 8:30. Is that okay? Is that a popular demand request? Is that all right? You guys want to say it enough? Okay, because we started about 30 minutes later. I want to thank you for all your questions. I want to thank you greatly. You had some great questions. And I greatly apologize. We're not going to be able to get a lot of these good questions asked, but we're doing the best that we can. Thank you again. Okay, go ahead.
Like my fellow panelists, I want to go across the board as well, so I'll start
Okay.
with you, Dave. And let's see how much trouble I can get in this question here. But what is your reaction to the Republican candidate's decision to not be at this forum? Is this typical of the treatment of the Latino voting public is getting this election season nationwide by certain politicians?
Great question, and I might need a few minutes on this one. I have some strong opinions about it. And Mr. Strickland is another career politician who's never had a real job, who's totally out of touch with what's going on. We have these folks from Sacramento and Santa Monica who are completely disconnected to what's going on. And you cannot, Mr. Strickland will not, I don't think he'll attend any debates. I don't think he'll do any debates during the general election. He thinks that he's got one of those spots secured and that he is going to be just fine. So I don't think he'll attend any of these.
Well, I think that we need to hear from the candidates. I appreciate the fact that we have this forum, and it's important for voters to know the views of the candidates. And if they're not going to come and present their views, I don't think they deserve your vote.
Mr. Herrera.
This is another example of the East and West County divide. And you know what Mr. Strickland is saying? You know what he's saying? He's saying, you don't vote. That's what he's saying. He says, I don't have to worry about you because you don't vote. I can count on my East County turning out 60 to 70%. And I can count on the West County turning out 30 or 38%. So that's what he's not disrespecting me, he's disrespecting us. So if you care about this election, you'll get out and you will vote.
You've been allowed this one time.
Thank you, Mr. Torres.
I think it's very unfortunate that Mr. Strickland is not here. I think it is, as Mr. Rivera said, it's an insult really to all of us. 43% of this congressional district is Latino, and he can't take the time, a few hours out of his day, to show up here, share his views with all of you. And so I think 43% of this district certainly shouldn't cast a vote for Mr. Strickland, and we'll show him something.
Okay, Tim, remember, go.
Go to whoever I want. We'll go to Supervisor Parks. And kind of sticking on the same subject here, about who votes and who doesn't. What's your view of some of these voter ID and proof of citizenship laws that various states have passed? Do you think they're designed to ensure fair elections, or do you think they're primarily designed to suppress voter turnout among low-income and minority communities? And if you think it's the latter, do you think, as a federal official, should the Justice Department investigate and look into these as potential violations of the Voting Rights Act?
Well, I do encourage people voting, and I think we should do all we can. My daughter's in New Zealand. You have to vote in New Zealand or you get a fine. I like that idea. I think it is part of being an American. It's our patriotic duty that we vote. So I'm strongly in support of encouraging the vote and not doing anything that would discourage it. I also obviously would want to crack down if there is any election fraud. You know, that is a serious issue if it is going on. But in general, I want to do everything I can to encourage people to vote.
But should someone, when they show up at the voting booth, have to have a photo ID in order to cast a ballot?
I don't think so. I think right now, if you do vote, you can have a provisional ballot, for example, and then they can be looked and followed up on to make sure that that ballot is a good ballot. If you show up unannounced to a voting booth to vote, let's get that vote in there, but you also consider it a provisional ballot.
Tim, that was for Ms. Parks, right?
Yes, it was.
Okay, I'd like to follow up prerogative. I have the prerogative. You were asking just to Ms. Parks, right? Ms. Parks, you made a very provocative statement. You said that in New Zealand, there's a penalty for you if you don't vote. You said you like the idea. How much do you like it? If you get elected, are you going to take it to the next step?
I tell you, I just think it is our duty. I think we should be...
Excuse me. Can you please, audience, thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Parks.
I'm generally a carrot person as opposed to a stick person. I would rather encourage people to vote and make sure that they do vote any way that we can. But I am kind of interested in that idea that, you know, it is your duty as a citizen to vote. And I think we would have different people in Congress right now if everybody voted, and I hope everybody will vote. We need to do everything we can to encourage it. But I would consider that. I want to see if there's enough support for it. I don't like pushing things forward when there isn't support. I don't like to go, I don't want to make any enemies. I want to make friends, but I think this is something that is part of our patriotic duty, and my preference would be to see that we encourage people and not have to find them, but it works. It definitely works.
Manuel, to whomever.
Thank you. This question goes to all the candidates. Here in Ventura County specifically, when we get our tax bill, we see so many extra taxations that we approved based on measures, based on bonds and things like that. Sometimes the bill goes like 12 issues there that are charging us for. And we see school districts, we see municipalities that overspend, waste our funds, and still let's submit more numbers, more measures to access more. How do you perceive that situation from the federal government? And are you planning to do something about that to prevent it? Or you're planning to do more of that so we get more taxation?
I don't know, there's something going back there that I don't quite understand, but, so I certainly have always been a proponent for communities to be able to take control of their own community. And so certainly in California, it's been prohibitive with a 2/3 majority, the way California governs, to give the opportunity for local communities, if they want to improve their schools or provide more services, if they agree to tax themselves. I've always supported that. I think, though, that we have to look very carefully at our tax system and how we can make some reforms, because we've got to close loopholes, we've got to, the tax credits to businesses, the loopholes, all those kinds of things that would bring revenue here to Ventura. I think are things that we really need to focus on a federal level.
Let me enhance part of my question.
Okay.
You mentioned the 2/3. Now there's people talking about making it only 50% or 51%.
On the California level?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I certainly would think that the threshold needs to be lowered. If it's 50 or 55%, I would certainly be supported. I think the people, if they don't like their legislator, they should vote them out. But I think that we should have the ability. California with 2/3 governs just the same way as Rhode Island does and Arkansas does. We have a high threshold. I say every single day, if we governed like Washington did here in California, we would be leading the rest of the country, because it only requires 60% in Washington. But with that 2/3 in California, that threshold, it just makes it very, very difficult. But yes, I would, for California, and I would certainly look at reducing that threshold and give us the same ability that other states do. And quite frankly, that's what drives the initiative process in California. That's what drives a constitution that's thicker than every other state in most of the countries, because there's no other way to govern than because of this really extraordinary threshold.
Now, give us for everything.
Thank you for the question, Mike. Americans have a basic sense of justice. What they want is a fair playing field, okay? And before we are asked to sacrifice by paying continuously higher taxes, we need to have corporations pay their fair share. We need to have oil companies cut out the subsidies that they're getting from our government. This is the way that we're going to get back to a level playing field for Americans, and this is what we need to do. This is why when you get a $25 ticket, all of a sudden when you end up paying for that ticket, it's costing you $300 because of all the hidden surcharges that have been put on that ticket. This is unfair. It's unfair to Americans. It's unfair to working class families that can't afford this type of thing, and we have to get back to that level playing field. Let's not ask Americans to make sacrifices that we're not asking of big corporations and the oil companies. They have to make their sacrifice first. Thank you.
Sparks.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of making it easier to pass taxes on. I think right now, with the state of our economy, it's really difficult for just average Americans to even pay their taxes. Between income taxes and sales taxes and property taxes, we're being taxed to death. And we're feeling it more. And the reason we're feeling it more is because people aren't making the kind of money that they are making. A lot of people are unemployed. It's a difficult time. So right now, I would not be in favor of making it easy to pass taxes. And I also agree with Commissioner Herrera that we need to close those corporate loopholes. We can certainly simplify our tax code, make it easier to file our taxes, but also maybe even shrink the size of the IRS. If we can make it easier, we won't need all these special exemptions for corporations, and I would look towards that before I would consider raising taxes.
I would agree with what's been said here. The tax burden is just too great for working class families. It needs to be more of a shared sacrifice. Corporations and big business, what they're able to get away with because they have lobbyists, because they have the ability to spend so much time with lawmakers. They're able to create these loopholes that give them a tremendous advantage. It needs to be much more shared sacrifice, and again, the tax burden I feel is just too great on working class and middle class families right now.
I'm gonna ask you a couple of real quick questions, gentlemen, and then we'll go to questions from the audience. It's just a yes or no on this question. In view of the positions that you all have just taken, especially the last two candidates, how are you going to vote in support of Governor Brown, and once they all figure out what they're going to do at the state level? Are you going to support that measure, or are you going to vote against that tax measure? Ms. Brown, yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera?
For education, yes.
Also for education, yes.
Yes. Okay, so let's do this one more time. That's not his tax measure. That's Munger's tax measure. So you've got, and she didn't play with him. Okay, she's doing her own thing. So are you going to support Brown measure? Yes or no? Ms. Brownlee made it very clear. She said yes. Thank you very much, Ms. Brown. Mr. Herrera, one more time. Brown measure, not the Munger measure.
Para que me entiendas, sí.
There you go.
As I also understand the Brown measure, it actually goes to cutting the pensions, the ability to spike pensions. This is also that same bill. And I think we are desperately needed in the state of California pension reform. So for that, I would support that. And it's an excellent model, so that I would support that. We need pension reform.
Same. Yes, that's very good. Okay. Now we're going to go to one question from the audience, which I think it's very, very important. And we're going to try to get questions from the audience now because we're getting close to doing the ballot and the straw vote. And this is a question that deals with topics that Congress has kind of messed with and played with, especially because of the Republican candidates. Brother Thomas, would you please stand? Brother Thomas Lee? You left, huh? Well, I'll ask it anyway because I think it's an interesting question, and I want you to juxtapose it with the following question. To what degree does God guide your decision-making? And the second one is, to what degree does God guide your decision-making, and how and if does that have any impact on women's right to choose? Really, this is not a feedback, participation. Question, let them answer it. Go ahead, we'll start with Mr. Thames.
That's a tough one. I can just answer that the only way I know how, but at the personal level. I can tell you that through this process, running for Congress, we announced back in August, and this is not an easy thing. And I've had to, my faith has grown so much because of this process. You're constantly torn down, you're constantly, you're so exposed, you put yourself out there, you're trying so hard, you want to do, you want to be so ready, and there are many times that I can tell you that this process has broken me down, and I've had to turn to a higher power for inspiration and help.
Any opinions on, does that somehow influence you one way or another on the right to choose, women's right to choose?
It doesn't. I've been pro-choice forever. Party that way.
I think a woman's right to choose should be between a woman, her doctor, and her faith. And it isn't government's role to be telling people whether they can have access to contraceptives, for example. And I just think government needs to stay out and stay out of the bedroom. And I also am pro-choice, and I don't think this is something that is a matter of religion or not religion, to tell you the truth.
Mr. Herrera.
Well, you know, I've always said that being a woman should not be a pre-existing condition. And there's always these issues that come up. It almost seems like there's a war on women's reproductive rights right now. And my wife tells me that God is a woman anyway, so I certainly would support all of women's rights and all of women's issues to their reproductive rights.
I am unequivocally pro-choice, I have, and I think that we also need to continue to fight for women so that we're providing budgets that are more equal to women. We still need to continue to fight to have equal pay for women. And certainly the last thing I would advocate for is reversing anything around what we have fought so hard for, and that is a woman's right to choose.
We're going to go into 30-second responses now, so we can get as many questions in the next.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a show of hands here. As a member of Congress, how many of you would vote to allow for additional leasing for offshore oil drilling off the Ventura, Santa Barbara County coast? Okay, in 30 seconds, Ms. Brownlee, tell me how that position helps working class people in Ventura County.
It helps working class people in Ventura County because it is, I think, regulation, if you will, protecting our coastline and making sure that we're not drilling offshore creates other opportunities, creating other energy sources, solar and the like. And by virtue of doing that, that creates jobs. It increases, it leverages and helps to incentivize, I think, new industries, new technologies, new innovations, renewable energy, and create a good, solid economy for Ventura and to create jobs here in Ventura.
You want everybody to take, or just
No, that's fine. We said we want to go fast.
There you go. Frank, what happened?
Question on affordable, wait. What would you do specifically to support the federal government funding affordable housing for farm workers here in the district?
Everyone?
Well, I think, Congress needs to take a good hard look in figuring out how to make sure that farm workers have housing and that farm workers are protected and have the right conditions for working. So there's a lot to be done in this area. And so we've got to figure out programs to ensure that workers in the field have a place to sleep and a roof over their head and an opportunity to be with their children and feed their children and have a decent and respectful quality of life.
This question will be for all of the candidates. In election time, all the politicians come to our community and they say, oh, I'm going to work for jobs, better jobs, lower crime, and blah, 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 which is the same list of things that we see every election time. Specifically to you, what would you do at the federal level if you got elected to create more jobs? In the United States right now, we have a very, very high unemployment rate. Within the Latino community, that unemployment rate is greater than that. What would you do specifically to increase the number of jobs for Latinos in this country?
Well, for all Latinos in the country, I think investment in infrastructure, investment in roads, investment in transportation, these are the things communities across the country need, and if we invest in those things, that will create jobs. And I think here in Ventura County, I think one of the most important responsibilities of being in Congress is making sure that Ventura County receives the resources and the investments that they deserve. And I think that's what I will work hard to do. That's what I've worked hard to do in the California legislature. But it is that investment, and then it's also leveraging to these new technologies and new industries for us to invest in. That's a little bit longer term. On the shorter term, we need to invest in infrastructure.
Thank you. Mr. Herrera?
And while I would be here working with you to create jobs, that has been part of my history, and it's verifiable that we have created a lot of good jobs in the Port of Wainea, and we continue to do so. As a congressperson, I would work to bring manufacturing back to the United States of America, and we can do that through proper training and the enforcement of fair trade laws. We can bring manufacturing back, and that's one thing that we need to do. We also need to improve our export initiatives, which is another thing that we will do under fair trade agreements. And also, recently I was just working with the Department of Commerce. There is plenty of grants available for development of new plans to create jobs right here in Ventura County, and those can be great jobs, and they can be jobs for the disabled, and they can be jobs for the elderly that still need income. So I would be here, ma'am, working to create those jobs on a regular basis, as I have always done.
Ms. Parks?
Thank you. You know, while I'm thinking of it with Ms. Herrera as a commissioner of the port, one of the things that I've heard from the agricultural industry is that if they could have containerized place of storage, then they could actually ship to China. And China is a huge market. And so that is something that could actually increase considerably the ability of our Ventura County farmers to expand their businesses, expand their crops. So I think that's a great opportunity. But I do have a 10-point job plan too, and some of them, if I may, is to reduce payroll tax for new hires. By just simply increasing job training programs, something we mentioned before, we can make sure they're in the growing sectors of the economy. On the Board of Supervisors, I was able to put forward a job training program for recent graduates in healthcare so that they can get on-the-job training, because unless they have that, it's really hard to get a job. Also invest government resources in infrastructure, but things that we need. I'm not so sure about the bullet train, but I do know that we have substandard bridges. We have a levee system that needs to be repaired. We need to keep agriculture a viable industry and with a reliable supply. And I have several others, including support for our naval base, providing tax incentives for emerging technology, attracting businesses with our high quality of life. And I'll pass it by the way.
Try to answer your question specifically. I think you need to work with the SBA and free up the lending process for young Hispanic and Latino entrepreneurs who want to start businesses, who want to create jobs, who want to expand. That would be an area that I would really focus on. But and that would be more at the micro level. At the macro level, again, the investing in our infrastructure and training, making sure that young Latinos and young Hispanics are properly trained for these jobs in the future.
Okay, I'm going to ask some quick questions. 30 seconds is not, you guys should be able to do this relatively easy, because this is something that I'm sure you've been reading a great deal about. I would ask you to look in your folders. There are two polls, both done by Gallup. One says, Congress's job approval and new low of 10%. You understand that? American public does not like Congress. 10%.
Who's that 10%?
So now my question to you, since I'm sure you've been reading these polls and your staff have been giving you this information, why in the Sam Hill do you want to run for Congress, an institution that nobody likes and is not getting anything done? What in the Sam Hill do you think you're so better and so good that you're going to make a difference? Mr. Herrera, let's start with you.
Well, thank you. It's because I know myself that I am going to make a difference. I don't watch polls for one thing. You know, I just act out of my own convictions. And obviously I ran for this position because I felt that I could make a difference for the citizens of this community, especially the Latino citizens who I understand very well and I speak their language. And this is what we need. We need somebody that understands our community and is willing to work with our community. I'm not so naive as to tell you that I'm going to go and I'm going to change the world, I'm going to change Washington, but I'm going to change Ventura County. I'm going to work with the people here to make a difference in this county. And I can guarantee you that it's going to happen because I am going to be available and with you.
Ms. Parks? I'm sorry, ladies and
I
gentlemen. I want
could
to
run
get
for
this thing
Congress
covered.
at another time, but the reason why I am running now, and the reason why I'm even considering running, is because I am so inspired by just what you read. Congress is broken. Congress is broken because of the partisanship where people aren't working together. It's broken because of the special interest money. And running as an independent and being elected sends such a strong message, a message that we don't want any more of that partisanship that's keeping them from getting work done. We don't want people who are beholden to special interests. And I feel like I'm running such a clean campaign in order to give that message strongly. And if I'm the first person, the only representative in the House of Representatives who's an independent, that's one. Then we need two, and I'm glad Nathan Fletcher down in San Diego decided to jump and become an independent, because that's what we need. We need independent thinkers, not someone who's just going to toe the party line because they have to when they get there. We need people who will work with both sides of the aisle. I have a proven record of that, and that's what motivates me. That's exactly what motivates me.
Thank you very much. Mr. Thames?
I'm a big believer in citizen government. I believe the founders intended for shopkeepers, business owners, farmers, teachers to go back and do the job for a period of time, then you return back to your community and you let someone else go, a periodic rotation. I'm the only candidate in this race to sign a term limit pledge. I said 8 years. If 8 years is enough for the President of the United States, it's more than enough for a member of House of Representatives. When you go back there and you see who they meet with day in and day out, they're not meeting with voters. They're not meeting with constituents. They're meeting with special interests, lobbyists, and party bosses. And they get back there, and Washington, D.C. has a way of, you lose your bearings. And they get back there, and they get completely disconnected to what's going on. So we need more mothers and fathers in citizen government to turn our country around. People are sick and tired of these career politicians who are completely disconnected.
Thank you very much. We're going to go to one more round. So Frank, it's the flag. I can't see it. The flag is blocking. I'm sorry.
Well, I strongly believe in public service, and public service to me is very, very important. Students come to my office every single day up in the legislature, and I talk a lot about public service and how important it is to give back to your communities. I believe that as someone who has had experience in a legislative body, I believe I have the experience and know-how to move legislation through and get bills and important policies signed by the governor. I will take that experience with me to Congress. But most importantly, it's about the constituents, and it's about delivering to the constituents, and it's about providing the resources to Ventura County. And again, I feel as though I have the experience to do both. And I'm a very hard worker. I take my job in the legislature very, very seriously. And I will take this job in Congress very, very seriously. And I will work hard every single day for all of you. And you, hopefully, will also be my counsel, will give me counsel, will give me advice, tell me what it is that you need and how we can work together.
Thank you very much as well. Okay, last round for the panel, and then we'll have last round from the audience, the questions, and then we'll tell you what the ballot results were. Okay.
I have a quick question for Supervisor Parks. You've spoken several times and just in that last response very passionately about being an independent and breaking partisanship. And you've said you don't know which side you caucus with or who you vote for speaker as a member of Congress. I want to know, as a citizen of the United States and someone who just expressed tonight the importance of voting, who do you intend to vote for President of the United States as a citizen?
You know, there is nothing in the Declaration of Independence, there's nothing in the Constitution of the United States, there's nothing in the Bill of Rights that talks about party. And I think that is the problem. And the idea that I am running as an independent is because I am rejecting the model of pits we against them. And I want to have the confidence when I get into Congress that they know that I am truly an independent. And so I reject trying to label me, who are you going to vote for president, who are you going to caucus with, who are you going to vote for Speaker of the House. Those to me are ways to try to label me as either a Democrat or a Republican. And I have been both. And I feel so comfortable as an independent, and I want to keep that. So I have the confidence when I walk in the halls of Congress that legislators from both sides of the aisle know that I'm open to working with them. If they've got a good bill, no matter who authored it, I'm going to go ahead and support it. And they know that they have that. And what a wonderful way to have your Congress people be. So that's my answer.
Okay, and not to be argumentative, but this is a lively forum.
Yes.
But how do the people you're asking to vote for you get a full appreciation of what you stand for?
I think the 90% of the people that we just heard about who reject Congress, who are giving them a bad rating, are going to say, we don't want another right wing, another left wing, another someone who can't get in there and work together. That's how I'm going to tell the voters. If the voters want to have someone in Congress representing just their interests, not special interests, not party interests, then you need to elect independent people who aren't caught in the problems that we have there. And they're huge problems. It's gridlocking their ability to do effective legislation.
Fair enough.
So then but I guess let me follow up with all due respect. And I'm taking that based on what you just responded, that as a matter of principle, again, you seem to be very principled, you won't be voting for the presidency.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Right now, I couldn't, if I wanted to, vote for one party's presidency because of the closed primary. And I just have to say, hallelujah, we have an open primary. Now, we can have an independent on the ballot. And any voter can vote for anyone on the ballot for Congress. So you don't have to worry that if you got a ballot, you don't need to change your party to vote. You can vote for anyone. And so I do feel very strongly that each person can go vote for who they want. And I am certainly not one to express a Democrat or Republican leaning. I think everyone has the right to vote any way they want.
Mr. Murray, anybody?
How would you resolve the issue of separation of families, IC locations, typically it's a foster care, sometimes, how specifically? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. David, specifically, how would you resolve the issue of deportation resolve the issue of separation of families because of ICE deportations? Kids are being sent to foster care, sometimes because of this. How would you specifically resolve this issue?
Well, again, I sat down with a couple of top immigration attorneys on Monday, and ICE and so many people are being picked up and not allowing to go through the due process. And it's obviously very troubling, but the way you correct it is one way you correct it is you get comprehensive immigration reform. That is the best way to start breaking that up.
Okay, Manuel.
This question will be for not too long ago, we had the president, Congress, majority, same party, and still there were not issues. What would you do different now if that wasn't happening?
You want to be specific to one issue, Manuel?
One issue that comes to like immigration. It was a Republican party. At one point, the president was a Republican. Congress was majority Republican.
I think I will answer that as I've already previously stated, and that is, I do believe if we can have a Democratic Congress and Senate and a Democratic president re-elected in the last 4 years of his presidency, that we can get this particular issue done in terms of real immigration reform. I mean, it's politics is politics, and I think that's what I bring to the table, is that I have experience working legislatively in a bipartisan way to move important legislation through. People refer move bills through and get them signed, both, I've had bills signed both by Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jerry Brown as well. But I believe that if you look at history and presidential tenures, when there is the same party in Congress and the president, things get done. And more things, I think, get done in the second year of a presidential term. And I'll just leave it at that, and I believe that, I'm hoping that that will happen, and that we can really roll up our sleeves and get to work. And I will say that as far as immigration and reforming the system, you know, I talk to lots of folks. I talk to business leaders and religious leaders, union leaders, and the like. And I believe that we can come up with a bipartisan approach to resolve immigration.
Thank you. Mr. Edson.
Thanks for that question, Mano. You know, as a negotiator, I know how you get these things done. And a lot of times it's by taking baby steps, and it's a lot of time by creating trust with the people that you're working with. But if you can show people that pilot programs work, that you can move forward, even if it's one step at a time, by respecting other people's opinions, this is what you do. You start creating those steps and you start moving forward. You have to have that type of movement. You have to have that type of cooperation. You know, unfortunately, when the majority party had the president and the Congress, nothing was done, and that's a shame. And that should never happen again, especially on these issues that are important to the Democratic Party. But like I said, you must constantly negotiate, you must take those steps, you must create that trust, and you must move forward. It can be done. I've done it my whole life, working with Republicans and working with Democrats. I've had a Republican congressman, I've had a Democratic congressman, and we've worked the same way just as well, moving forward, creating trust, step by step. And this is how you move these types of things forward. This is the only way to move these things forward.
Sparks.
Thank you. I think being the only independent in Congress with a message behind me, a mandate against partisanship, against special interests, is going to get me some attention when I am in Washington, D.C. And with that, I will look to our leaders in Congress, speak with the majority leader and the minority leader, and try to put together a bipartisan committee. That, as Commissioner Herrera mentioned, it is important to take baby steps, but something as simple as a bipartisan committee to work together, I think, is one of those steps. And I know that they will be lobbying me, hoping that I'll vote for them for Speaker of the House, and I can look to them and say, what can you do towards getting us this bipartisanship? And I think that in itself will make us a more effective Congress. As an independent walking in the door, compared to, for example, a freshman Democrat or a freshman Republican walking the door, I think I'm going to actually have more influence. And I do, as I mentioned before, hope to kind of cut a path for other independently minded people to come to Congress, because that's the best way, I think, of being able to do the people's business, not influenced by special interests or partisanship.
Mr. Thames.
Well, I'd like to believe that I've already started to take some baby steps towards that. When I was back in Washington, D.C., and I met with Representative Charlie Gonzalez, the head of the Hispanic and Latino caucus, and Ben Ray Lujan, and stressed to them that this would be one of my top priorities, and I want to be there with them. And if whoever needs to take the lead, it doesn't matter. This needs to happen. And you also have to lean on the President of the United States and let him know that the voters, that this is a gigantic priority.
Okay, I'm going to ask, these are going to be individual questions from the audience, so this will be the last round. I'm asking you, I know it's really at times very unfair to expect you to answer what are difficult questions in a very short period of time, but we are trying to cover as many Latino issues as we possibly can, so I apologize, and I'll start this round with, this goes to Ms. Brown. This is from Jackie Hinojosa. Mr. Hinojosa, how will you advocate and support continued funding for child care development block grants for California?
This is a really important issue, and I have been a strong advocate for child care, and when we go through this legislative budget in the legislature, I will be defending childcare vociferously. It's critically important, and already I have begun to work with my colleagues within the Democratic caucus, and we've already talked to the speaker about our issue around child care, and that this is not an area in the budget that we're going to accept. And so I will continue to work on that, and certainly also going to Congress, I hope that I can elevate the importance around early childhood education for this country. Because if every child has the opportunity early and has a great early start and are really ready to learn when they go to kindergarten, the research is very clear. They will succeed in school. The problem is that most children, or a lot of children, when you look at that opportunity divide, that achievement divide, it's children who don't have those opportunities and why they tend to fail in school and drop out of school. All children can learn, and they can learn at high levels. So the early childhood education component is so critically important, and you can count on me to fight for that.
The next question is from Martin Kaplan. And this is for David Cruz-Thane. What are your specific thoughts about legislation pertaining to seniors, and what have you done for seniors in your public life? So if you had no public life in your office,
I've done a lot of things in trying to help others, maybe not seniors specifically, but I spent a tremendous amount of my time volunteering in youth activities and youth sports, and I serve on the advisory committee for the my local homeless shelter to do everything I possibly can. I spend the night there.
you can't do it.
So, but seniors specifically, I have not had, because I've not been in elective office, I've not been able to help in that way.
Thank you. Mr. Herrera, this is from Aurelio Rosales. Aurelio Rosales. Senor Rosales asks, I'm going to read it in Spanish, and you can translate it for the audience, Jess. ¿Qué planes tiene para lograr o para el gran problema de la droga? ¿Qué más dice? No
que
puedo leer.
tenemos en esta área de Ventura.
Con la juventud en esta área, en el condado de Ventura. You want to translate that?
Yes. He's asking, what are we going to do about the drug problem here in Ventura County? And my answer to that is that I certainly would be willing to create a task force with law enforcement to see what type of funding is necessary, see what type of resources we can bring to the table to curtail this. This is a really important issue. It's pervasive. It hurts our children. They start at an early age, and it just continues on. So we need to do this, and I would actually raise it to a federal crime of anyone selling drugs to children, and especially in the school area. This is something that has to be taken extremely seriously, and believe me, I would do that.
Okay, this question for Ms. Parks, and this is from Ms. Espinosa from Santa Paula. Santa Paula has the highest unemployment rate in the county, 17%. Why do we see reduction in services such as human services agencies, social service employees reduced by 24, which is a 51% reduction?
The county has a policy, and what we do is if we don't have the money, we have to end the program. Because otherwise you end up like the state of California or the federal government with an incredible deficit that hurts our economy. But there are some excellent programs that we do have, and I just want to mention one of them, and that is welfare. Instead of giving the welfare recipient the funds, the entitlements, we give it to the employer, who then hires the welfare recipient. And that person then gets job training. The employer gets half off basically in hiring that recipient. And as a result, it helps the employer, it helps the economy. And what a great way to empower. Instead of just giving entitlements, you're actually empowering them to be able to get into the workforce. So there are great examples out there of doing more with less. And unfortunately, in this day and age, that's where we are.
Is that happening in Santa Paula, the good results that you're talking about? Or is that happening
Absolutely, it's countywide. It's a program countywide.
Okay, this ends the question period. Mr. Juarez would like to make some closing comments. I want to thank the audience. I want to thank you immensely for your questions. And before Mr. Juarez makes the closing comments and we tell you what the results of the poll on the straw vote is, each candidate will now have 2 minutes to make a concluding statement of why they're running, what they learned tonight, and the fact that the next time they'll come, they'll be even more specific. They have 2 minutes to close and offers their closing thoughts. We will begin with none other than the distinguished County Supervisor, Linda.
Well, thank you for that, I think. First of all, I so much appreciate being here this evening. I'm so glad to see all these organizations come together to present this forum. It's novel. I haven't seen this before, and I think it's wonderful, and it's a great education for the public. If elected to government, I know that people can trust me because I have a record of 17 years in office. And it's a record that shows that I don't cave in. And how important is that in Congress? You know, a lot of elected officials, once they get elected, change. Well, I don't change. I'm there for my constituents first and foremost. I'm there for my country. For example, I have been able to start a lot of grassroots organizations, from SOAR that protects our agriculture and farmland, to municipal advisory councils in Soma, Santa Rosa Valley, Oak Park, Newberry Park, fire safe councils. I'm accessible. People can reach me. And I don't subscribe to one party having all the answers. I don't think one person has all the answers, but to have someone that will listen, that is there, that will hear you, and be able to formulate their decisions based on that information, that's called representation. And how wonderful it is to have congresspeople who are truly representing their district, who live here, who know the district, and know the needs. Right now, our most important problem is jobs and the economy. And there are great things we can do if we work together. I do have a 10-point job plan that you can see on my website, which is sendlinda.com. But I also think more than anything, having people there who aren't beholden to special interests. I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, but I see what's wrong with Congress. And what's wrong with Congress is we do have people who are beholden to special interests. So I'm hoping that voters will take a bipartisan step themselves and not vote just for the party, but actually vote for the best candidate. We have an opportunity because we have an open primary. The basis of the open primary is to get moderates, to get people who aren't on one side or the other of the aisle. Why do we even have an aisle? They should be sitting every other seat, you know, instead of one side and the other.
Thank you
But
very
I
much.
thank you very much this evening, and I appreciated the dialogue.
Thank you very, very much. Mr. Thames?
Thank you, everybody, for turning out. This is a great turnout and a great opportunity to talk about the issues and the things that matter most. I believe our political system is truly broken in this country. As I mentioned earlier, I believe that the founders intended for shopkeepers, business owners, normal people, mothers and fathers to go back. And it was never intended to be a career. We have folks that have been back there for so long who have completely lost touch with what working class and middle class families are going through. That's one big reason why I'm running. Again, I signed a term limit pledge. I will go back. I will roll up my sleeves. I will get the job done. I will work as hard as I possibly can, and then I'll return and we let someone else go. One more thing that needs to happen. With technology being the way it is, okay, we need to get more members of Congress back in their home district, not going back to Washington, D.C. so much, because when they go back there, they're surrounded 5-to-1 by special interests, lobbyists, and party bosses. And that has to change, and you can vote electronically from your home district, taking meetings all day long from voters and constituents, and being in your home district. That way you don't lose your bearings, and that way you don't get corrupted by these individuals that are back there. I've been saying all along, if you want to preserve the American dream, send somebody back to Washington, D.C. that's actually lived it. Thank you so much for your time.
very much, Mr. Haynes. Mr. Herrera.
Thank you for having this, this forum that was named after me. Latino issues. We have heard a lot about special interests, and I have a lot of special interests. And they start with farm workers, the disabled, veterans issues, students issues, and senior issues. These are issues that concern me, and the issues that I'm going to work on. You know, despite the fact that Latinos are the fastest growing population in the nation, issues and programs affecting Hispanic community are often overlooked. As the country's fastest growing minority group, there is no doubt that the future of the United States is linked to the future of the Hispanic community. What Latinos once did with the sweat of their brow, they're now doing as business owners. Latino-owned businesses are the greatest growing segment of our business community, creating over $600 billion into the local economy and also creating jobs. But there's still much work to do. As we know, 50% of our Latino community lives in poverty, and our farm workers are the most vulnerable. That segment of society is still living in inhumane conditions, working in harsh fields, and exposed to the environmental hazards that are there. Their children are forced to live in crowded and unsafe dwellings and neighborhoods that are literally impairments for their development. They are even afraid to go outside and play. How can children even study in this type of an environment? This is not the promise of America. This is not the promise of America. And today we can decide to make a difference. Why not make that change now? Why not take this opportunity now? This is a new frontier, una frontera nueva para nosotros, un distrito nuevo para nosotros. We can seize it if we choose. Let us do it now. Nothing happens on its own, as Cesar Chavez told us, but if we work, sí se puede hacer.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I also want to thank all of you for being here and for participating. This has been a fun forum, and I've really enjoyed it, and thank you for your participation. And I would just like to say that you know, we talk about the American dream, you know, and our children's generation should just have the same hope and dreams that we've had, and we need to make this America, Ventura County, California, a better place. And I don't think Democrats or Republicans have all of the answers, but I do think that Republicans are out of touch in Washington, or are taking advantage of the American dream by protecting the wealthy on the backs of the poor and working families, the elderly, the disabled, and the middle class. And we have to work hard to change that paradigm. I want to go to Congress. I feel like I have the experience to go to Congress, but I want to get our economic engine running in America again. I want to create jobs, and these are not platitudes that I'm saying. I will continue to work on the issues that I have worked on in the legislature, and that has to do with health care for all. It is about a high-quality education for our children. It is about protecting our environment. These are the things that I want to go to Washington and get our country back on track again. I am really proud to have made some of the accomplishments I have made in the legislature, and I just want to share a few things that I'm working on even this year, and that's talking about fighting for protections for domestic workers, for upping the minimum wage. I had bilingual education to provide a California seal on everybody's high school diploma who speaks 2 languages. And these are the things that I have been working on in the legislature. These are the things that I will work on going to Congress. You will be my counsel, you will be my advisors, and I promise you I will work as hard as I've worked in Sacramento to deliver to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll just have some closing comments, and then Ms. Espinosa will give you the vote tally.
First, I'd like to thank our distinguished panel, Mr. Moraga, Mr. Hurt, and Mr. Munoz. Thank you very much for coming to us. And going to do an article on this forum, so hopefully that'll happen, right, Mr. Hurt?
Well, since I was participating, there's another reporter who was here tonight. He'll be doing the story.
You can edit his work, or her work. And also like to thank the candidates. Thank you very much for just taking the time. Can we get the members that are still here from the Latino Issues Forum to come up? Also, I'd like to just have the public recognize you for all of the hard work you've done. Please, everybody, come on up. Again, a great group. I've enjoyed working with you. I had more hair when I started with them a couple months ago, but it's been a great group. It's diverse because there are folks from across the county of Ventura, which is something that doesn't happen a lot with a lot of folks, much less our Hispanic population. Sometimes we think to cross the Santa Clara River, we need a passport, and we don't. We need to cut across even our county lines in order to represent our whole community. And what I like about this group also, you have folks that are as old as I am, and then you have the youth council from LULAC, and you have men and women participating. So to me, that is great that we have different age groups, we have different cities, and different demographic, again, different generations. So council, thank you very much. You've done an excellent job putting all of this together.
Again, I want to thank you, the people who vote, the people who may not vote, the people who may have been encouraged to vote a couple of times, just once. They have ID. I think it is. I think it's a great accomplishment. I come from the outside. I think it's a great accomplishment that you showed up today, that you came, that you participated, that all of these questions came forward. I think it's a shame that we were not able to have a much broader dialogue with all of you and the candidates. I would encourage the candidates to have that dialogue with you, to organize it. Their campaign people are in the audience. I think it would be a reflection of their commitment to this community for them to have their own dialogue session with the Latino community. I think that the questions that you addressed and you asked about the great divide that exists between one world, the Ventura County, and the world that's primarily in this room, is a reality that has to be addressed more concretely, more honestly, more genuinely, and more sincerely. And that is a real big challenge. That challenge is up to you, much more than it is to them. You're the voters. You're going to make a decision of which of these four, plus the other distinguished gentleman from the Republican Party, Mr. Strickland. We say nothing bad about any candidates here. The Latino Issues Forum is a nonpartisan entity that has no favorites. You're going to elect one of those individuals. It's you who will elect, along with the other people in the rest of this county. But you will dictate, you should dictate what the priority should be of these candidates. It shouldn't be the other way around. So I want to congratulate the Latino Issues Forum for their leadership. And I hope that they will have the same kind of session when the first two the finishers are selected, voted by you all. But I hope that you will not let go of these issues, that you will continue to discuss them, you will expect these candidates to answer the questions. I would love to be a part of those discussions because I had 1,000 questions that I wish that they would have been able to answer. I don't know if they were prepared to answer them in regards to Latinos as much as they should have been. But I think it's a great thing that they showed up. You stayed for 3 hours. You have a great deal of tenacity and you have the respect of many people. Now, the distinguished lady from Santa Paula on the other bridge, right, on the other side of the river. Let's not forget that. Fillmore's on that side, Santa Paula, Pyro, they're all over there. We've got to pay attention to that part of the county. She will now read the results. David Cruz Thane said something today, which I hope will not be lost on any of you. I hope that you will remember. He gave an extremely sincere response when he said how much he had learned when, as a candidate running, how much a candidate exposes themselves to criticism, to ridicule, to a number of other things that many in this room have not done. It takes a lot of courage to run for public office. And I hope that you will not forget.
Been in the political world myself for a few years, and I have never seen a turnout for a forum like tonight. I have never seen one last till 9 o'clock and the room still be as full as it is right now. So this has been a tremendous opportunity for our community, tremendous opportunity for the candidates, and we hope to see many more of these types of forums in the future. So what you're all waiting for, each of your packets that you received when you signed in contained a straw ballot like this. And, oh, yeah, the candidates didn't vote, so sorry, but we do have the results, and so no drum roll, but here we go. Candidate number 1 on the ballot is Jess Herrera, and he came out with 83. Julia Brownlee was next on the ballot. She had 45. Linda Parks was next with 31. David Cruz Thane with 9.
Again, thank you. That concludes our event. If you, we still have coffee and soft drinks on the side here, some cookies. So if you'd like to spend more time, perhaps the candidates can be there with you. Thank you very much. Good night. Good point.